All right, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It is 2025, compliments of the new year to all of you, my viewers. Today I have a special guest. She is a member of AfriForum. She does have an extensive CV, so to speak, or bio in the AfriForum organization, and I'm sure we'll be talking a lot about that during this episode. I hope you guys are excited as I am for this year, and I hope you all will have a blessed year and that all of your plans and your vision will come to pass by the end of this year. Today we have Carien Bloem, or Carien Bloem rather. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Treasure. It's quite an honor to be on your podcast, and I'm going to enjoy the discussion with you.
I hope we will both enjoy it. I see that you sent me your bio and you've basically done most of the things that we'll be talking about today, being involved in the education space. How did you first get into education?
Yeah, so that was quite an interesting story. Um, when I finished my degree at the Northwest University in Communication Studies, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. And then I got this opportunity to go teach at a high school in Pretoria, High School Alderaan. They needed a teacher to teach arts and culture and speech and drama. That was also subjects that I loved when I was at school. And one of my major subjects while studying communication studies was art history. So that helped me to be a candidate for this position. And it was interesting because I enjoyed it. I did it for 4.5 years. I taught grade 8 and grade 9 learners. But
The problematic kids.
the problematic ones,
Yeah.
and we had this combinations with some of the classes because they had a subject where they could choose if they want to take a certain sport. So I had this combination classes where there was like 30 boys because they were all taking rugby, and then
Yeah.
4 girls because they were taking hockey. And that rugby guys, they didn't want to do any arty things. They didn't want
Yeah.
to draw anything. They didn't want to say up a poem or learn a new dance. So it
Yeah.
was quite struggling, but we also had very fun times. But I
Yeah.
always knew that I don't want to be a teacher, but it's weird. I love the education environment and the school environment. I'm very passionate about that. But I don't think I've got all the patience you need to be a
To be
great
a teacher.
yeah. So when I had the opportunity to start working at AfriForum, it was more in my line of studies. And I decided I'd rather want to pursue that. And yeah, it's now almost 12 years that I'm with the organization and I haven't looked back.
And how did you branch off to AfriForum?
So that was very interesting. Well, it was, like I said, about 12 years ago. So my dad sent with my little sister, he sent a small envelope. She was in grade 8 at that time. And the one day she came into my class and said, "Listen, Dad sent this envelope for you." And when I opened it, my dad wrote a little letter that said, "I know you're looking for something else. Here is 2 options. Maybe you should apply if you have a chance, if you have some spare time." And in it was 2 little snippets out of the newspaper with 2 jobs at AfriForum. One was for a youth organizer, and one was for a marketing coordinator. So I applied for both jobs and I got interviews, and eventually I started my career at AfriForum in their marketing department.
Mhm.
And then after 6 months, a position opened in the in the cultural, or what do you call it? The cultural affairs department, where
Mhm.
education is part of, and I applied for that. So in 2014, I started in 2013 at AfriForum in June, but the
Mhm.
following year in January 2014, I started as the coordinator of education at AfriForum.
From, yeah. But what do you
Yes.
do now? I see that you are heads of education projects. What are some of the things that you deal with on a daily basis?
Yeah, so when I started at AfriForum in the education post or position,
Mhm.
um, there was quite a few, what would you call it, like, we wanted to do a little bit more to develop children a little bit more, and in certain areas. And
Mhm.
one of the areas that was very important for us was that children must be able, or learners must be able, to speak their
Mhm.
mind, and they must be able to voice their opinion, and they must be able to think on their feet and talk sense, and um, you know not always, just be educated and know what is going on around you
Yeah.
without practicing a speech over and over, and later on it sounds like a poem that you are reciting.
Reciting, yeah.
So, of reciting, sorry, not recycling. So that's where we started. Sorry, that's my dog. That's where
No, that's fine.
that's where we start when we started the debate competition. Dink of sink, or for your listeners, it's sink or drown, and it's
Yeah.
an unprepared debate competition, and that is one of our prime projects at AfriForum. And then the next thing that we also thought that is very important is the fact that we got a lot of concerns from outside about children being bullied at school and
Mm.
on social media, and the suicide rate that's just going up and up under young people. And then
Mm.
we decided, listen, this is something that we also need to look at, and we started a bully campaign where we visit primary schools, and we start from a young age and educate them and tell them that really this isn't the right thing to do. Sorry, Tracy, you must tell me if my dog, is it a problem?
No, no, it's
So,
fine. We can still continue. Yeah, I can still hear
okay,
you. Yeah.
sorry. No, I just don't want
That's fine.
to be a problem.
Yeah.
Sorry. So yeah, we visit primary schools. We also made a short movie for high schools, where it's more relatable for older children, and we've really got great success for it. I think over the past 4 years, we've almost visited 5,000 schools with this
Mm.
project all over the country. Yeah, and then we also have certain campaigns that we feel very strongly about, like for instance, the Bella Bill. Um,
Mhm.
there is that two bylaws in the bill that AfriForum Solidarity and the Skoolondersteuningssentrum of the School Supporting Centre feels very strongly about, and we had a big protest about it, and there is still ongoing actions regarding this because it's not settled yet. So there is there's a fighting side to our projects as well, but there's also a
Mhm.
building side,
Side
and
of it,
we,
yeah.
yes, we also want to focus on the positive side and what we can give back to the community. We also have a very interesting small entrepreneurs competition for primary school learners, where we encourage them to start their own little business. Even though it can be just for fun, it can be something like baking cakes or making jackets for dogs and cats, or something more extreme or more professional, like we've got a guy that farms with eggs and chickens. So there's quite a variety, but it's very nice for us to see how children from a small age learn responsibility and learns the know-hows of having a business and be sustainable on your own, and just learn that qualities that is like skills that you're not always being taught at school. So yeah, that's some of the main projects that we focus on at
At the
AfriForum's
current
education
moment.
projects. Yes.
And I know I'll be jumping a little bit with my next question to you, because I had sent you a list of what we're going to talk about. But does some of the provisions of the Bella, for example, the making of grade R, which is about 5 to 4 years old of children, to be mandatory basically for them to be in grade R, will that affect some of the projects that you guys are involved in?
Yeah, I think it will definitely give us an opportunity to reach out to those learners. Um, we are lucky because some of the schools already have like a grade R campus at their primary school. So, and they already incorporate the grade R's with the grade ones. So some of those children we are already reached. I think it's just children that's at kindergarten, or that's at doing grade R at a school that's not like a play school, that's not part of a primary school, that we won't reach at this moment. We will only get to them when they are formally in grade one, or when they attend a grade R year at a school with a grade R campus.
Yeah. Well, we can get to the first topic, which was the composition of our education system. Can you explain how we are comprised as the South African education system?
Yeah, so Treasure, we've got a quite interesting composition or a structure. Um, our schools are basically divided between 5 quintiles. So we have quintile 1, 2, and 3 schools. These schools are non-feeable schools. It means the parents don't need to pay any school fees. They are fully supported by the government. Some of these schools also have like a feeding scheme, because that is the only place where the children gets to have something to eat for the day. Um, some of the schools are in very poor environments and in desperate need of the necessary facilities. They don't have basic stuff like running bathrooms, and safe bathrooms. They don't have enough classrooms. They don't have enough qualified teachers. I don't think they even have like a playground, some of
Yeah,
them, where
some of
children
them, yeah.
just can have to, just if there's a break, where they can just go out and sit on the grass and have their sandwiches. So that's a big concern for us, because then you have the quintile 4 and 5 schools. The quintile 4 and 5 schools, if you visit some of these schools, it will almost look like private schools. Um, they've got exceptional facilities. They've got auditoriums, astro hockey fields, swimming pools, hostels, enough classrooms, enough teachers. It's just the learners really have the ability to um, get to learn in academically, but also develop on the sport field and cultural, with different cultural activities like dance and drama and choirs and everything. Until 4 and 5 schools are also school feeable schools. This means that parents or they need to pay school fees. Um, the the problem is just that there is a part that the government give to these schools, but it's in a very less amount that they give to quintile 1 to 3 schools. The problem at the moment with the quintile 4 and 5 schools is that it looks like they are extremely wealthy. But the thing is, they've got a very strong parent community that supports those schools, and they've got a very strong school governing body that's also being put together by parents. And these parents work extremely hard to do extra fundraisers so that there is money to build a hostel or to build a swimming pool or to build a theatre. So what nobody ever says is that these schools can't even rely on 50% of their school fees because not all the parents are able to pay it. So they need to make ends meet on another way. The other thing is also that, they really also have a lot of teachers, but almost 50% of their teachers are being appointed by the SGB, that's the school governing body. So that means that the school governing body also pays that salaries of that teachers. So some of those schools, if they've got 100 teachers, 50 of those teachers or school governing body teachers. And that is something that quintile 1, 2, and 3 schools really don't have. So our biggest concern about this whole construction of the educational system is that there's a very large imbalance between schools in the quintile 1, 2, and 3 range and schools in the quintile 4 and 5 range. And actually, we need a system where there's one standard, and because all children need to have access to a good school with quality basic education. Just because you live in a better area or you have a sponsor or something isn't a reason why you must get a better education than someone that doesn't have that opportunity, or you shouldn't be neglected because you live in a poorer community or in don't have a sponsorship for a better school. So I think what really will be great for us is if there can just be a standard to say, listen, all schools in South Africa needs the following basic regulation or basic facilities. They need sport fields. They need a classroom, enough classrooms, enough teachers. There can't be more than 30 children in a classroom because you can't teach quality education if there's 90 children in a classroom and there's no textbooks and there's no fan to cool off the class. So some of the situations at schools are just really not great. So that's the one thing. And then I think the other thing that's really bothering us is also the fact that a lot of these schools, quintile 1, 2, and 3 schools, are English taught schools. So the children goes to these schools and they are forced is a strong word, but the education takes place in English, although their mother tongue is not English. So now you sit with a situation where these children learn how to read and to write, but they don't understand and they don't comprehend what they read and what they write. So later on, it turns into a bigger problem because they drop out of their school system because they don't get to go to the next grades because they fail their subjects. It really just have a negative reaction. And that's also one thing why AfriForum feels so strongly about mother tongue education, not just Afrikaans, mother tongue education. That's obviously very important for us because we're an Afrikaner organization. But every child needs to have the right to get education in his mother tongue, and thereafter must have the choice to choose a second language that he prefer. And then that language can be whatever. But now they don't have a choice, and that's the problem.
What do you think can be done, for example, with regards to having a support of that sort? I mean, Forum is one of the big organizations for Africans, and they advocate, obviously, for the Afrikaner ethnicity, so to speak. And you guys are doing a great job in advancing your interest and saying, hey, look, we are pushing against these regulations because we feel that they will infringe on our group. We are doing this in our communities because we feel the government is not really taking the necessary steps. I mean, I think I saw it in one article that you guys built a school as AfriForum, and that's the initiative that you've taken towards education. What do you think the other groups, for example, Zulu, Tsonga, Swati, Tswana, and so forth, can do to get to that place where they are also comfortable with having to advance those programs themselves in their neighborhoods?
Well, Treasure, that's a difficult thing because if it was so easy, I think a lot of the different language types of people would have already done it. I think in South Africa, AfriForum tries to set an example for communities to show them, listen, this is what can be done if you mobilize people that feels the same way that you feel. So I would say that, like, for instance, a few years ago, we helped the Zulu community in Nkumate in Nkandla, and they really had this very big necessity of, or they really needed an extra high school. And they just struggled with the Department of Education, and nothing has been done. And we said, okay, listen, let's try and help and see what we can do. And it was amazing to see how that whole community came together when we were at the court, and we won the court case where the court actually said to the department, listen, you need to build this school, and this is the time frame. They came in there in buses and everything. So that was quite a big win for their community, but it was also very nice for us to know that we supported them by a strategy that we take, and that's also a reason why they reached out to us. They said, listen, we see that you get stuff done, please help us and teach us how to do it. And I think that is the main thing for AfriForum as well. Yes, we feel strongly about our Afrikaans and our culture, and but we don't say that must be the only language and the only culture. We really want everyone to have a place in South Africa, and um, and it is possible. It is possible if everyone respects each other, and if the government have the political will to develop schools and mother tongue education, then there is place for everybody. So yeah, but to answer your question, I think, yeah, if we can just lead by example and other communities can follow our example, and the most important thing is just you need to stand together, because more people are much more powerful than only one person trying to solve something. It's that thing where they say it's power by numbers, and it's really true.
Yeah.
And it really makes your voice strong. So if the Zulu community says, listen, we feel adamant about mother tongue education, and the Tswana community, and the Sepedi, and the English, because we've got English mother tongue people in South Africa as
Yeah.
well. Um, then there can be different schools, and all of those schools can have different languages that you can choose from. You can choose then if you want to take an African language, or if you want to take a European language like French or Mandarin or whatever. But it's your choice, and it's not being forced upon you.
No, I totally understand. We recently had the grade 12 results coming out. What was your reaction to that? I
Well,
mean,
Treasure,
there was a lot of talk.
yeah. Well, if I can tell you, if you look at the results, it's exceptionally good.
Yeah.
Um, there was a lot of schools with 100% pass rate. There's not one province with a pass rate below 80%. The national pass rate is 87.30.
Interesting.
That's very high. So if you look at that, then our educational system looks brilliant. It looks like there's no problems, and it's very high and it's very good. And there was a lot of learners that really got a lot of distinctions. A lot of learners got to pass with and go on to university. Now, so it really looks great, but that's only on the surface. I think the problem that is not mentioned all the time is the fact that there was about 36% fewer learners who wrote their matric exams than the amount of learners that started out in grade
Matric.
1 in 2013. And that was now published by the Department of Education's technical report. So that means there is a lot of children that fall out of the system between grade 1 and grade 12. So obviously, if the amount of children who writes a matric exam is smaller, then the percentage will be higher. But if you look at the whole amount of children that needed to actually finish their school years, or the whole school term from grade 1 to grade 12, then it's actually very bad. And it's a very, very big problem. And there's a lot of reasons for children falling out. We spoke about the fact that they get taught in a language that they don't understand. Some of the schools' environments are just so unfavorable. They get targeted by crime. There is drug abuse and gangs. There is teenage pregnancies. And it's actually so tragic because that is never being said. When the matric results are being released, the true facts are never being stated because that's really extremely negative.
Yeah.
So it's a problem. It's a big concern for us because there's a lot of learners that dropped out of school. They don't have a matric certificate. They've got no opportunity of a further career in the country because the minimum qualification that you need to apply for a job in South Africa is a matric, a matric certificate. That there's no opportunity for them to go study, and I think we already having a big problem in our country with the high unemployment rate, and this is just putting more pressure on it. It's just adding up to more people that is not having a work and don't have the opportunity to work in our countries. So it's very tragic.
Yeah, I saw on the news the other day that there are fewer spaces in university than people who actually qualify to go to university, who can actually get to university. Does AfriForum also look into things like that, higher education projects?
Yeah, surely, like our debate competition is from primary school till university. Um, I also actually listened at a thing this morning on the radio, a program where they spoke to a lady at a university, and she also said that, it's actually very concerning because also the pass rate, where you need to get like 40% to pass a language and 30% to pass other subject, is quite lower than the pass rate at university. So she said it really um, isn't favorable because now you get children that come and study with pass rates of 30 and 40%, but they have to get 50% now that they study at university.
University, yeah.
Yeah, so it is a big
Yeah, I
concern.
think I think that will also create a situation where people are coming out of high school, but they're not prepared for university, and so you find that in as much as they performed, so to speak, in quotation, with regards to the pass rate of 30 and 40, when you get to university, you start to see the decline in the number of people who are actually dropping out because they can't manage the workload in university, the stress that comes with being in university. And so I think that's also another challenge that we are facing in our education system, which is preparedness for university. I mean, some of the courses that are being offered really need you to understand the material, and it needs you to have that work ethic of saying, I'm going to get 70, 80 and above. But if you've been getting your 30s and your 40s, then you're really not prepared for the amount of work that you are going to be receiving.
Yeah, and also the other thing is, uh, if you get free university education, then they don't get out of the system. They don't finish their degrees because they fail and they go back and they fail and they go back. So there's also not new spaces opening for the new people to come in because there's not a group that starts and finish after 4 years or 5 years of. So yeah, it quite has a snowball effect, but I think the universities are quite aware of this problem. Like the lady said this morning, it's not a problem that's new. It's only reoccurring every year at this time of the year because now is the time where everyone needs to go enroll and start their university um, course. So it's now, relative again, but it's something that the universities are struggling now for years. Um, at the Solidarity Movement, we've got our own university and we've got our own technicon like Soltech, where you can learn certain skills like being a boil maker or a hairdresser or something like that. And then at the university, we've got now certain degrees that you can study, like law, or you can do what do you call it, like business management, a BCom business management. So, and that was one of the reasons why we decided we need a university because of the state where the other universities are in. It is just it's terrible, and at the end of the day, the quality of that universities are also being affected by the fact that the pass rates of the learners are so low.
That's true. That's true. But what are the possible solutions that can be suggested? I know obviously it's not going to be short-term solutions that will work. There has to be some long-term effect that we are looking at. So what are those possible solutions that, maybe AfriForum is working on?
Yeah, so I think obviously it's not something that we can do alone, and we as AfriForum, we need to apply pressure on the Department of Education because at the end of the day, the responsibility for basic education and higher education lies at the Department of Education. And actually, they have great plans in place. And I think a lot of years have been spent on making plans, but not as much on acting on that plans. And, I've got great belief in the new minister, Sivwe Garube. I think, regarding the situation where she's in, she's really trying her best. And, but I think what we would really like to see is we really like the Department of Education to take action. I would like to know what are they spending their money on, because they've got a really big budget every year. There's a big amount of money going to the education budget, but still there's a shortage of schools, there's a shortage of teachers, there's a shortage of facilities, there's still no running bathrooms. So where is that money going to? I would like to see that there is specific target set to say, okay, listen, we've got 9 provinces. We need to build 2 schools every year in every province. And there must be feedback. There must be a report that said at the end of the year, there were 2 schools built here, there were 2 schools built here, there were 2 schools built here. Because we as taxpayers and parents, we never get any feedback on anything that's being done. And there's a lot of upliftment projects, and that's also good, and there is a place for it. But the Department of Education needs to get a stronger priority on what is urgent and what is a necessity and what is a nice to have. If there's enough schools and the necessary facilities and education, then fewer upliftment projects will be needed, because then it won't be necessary to uplift everything, because everything is already on a great standard. So I would really just like to see that there is targets set out, and that those targets being met, and that there is also thorough feedback to tell us, listen, this is what's. I know in KwaZulu-Natal, it's hectic, because every year they lose a lot of schools due to weather conditions. There's a certain part of the year where it rains non-stop, and then there is rivers coming down, children can't get to school, there's no transport, because it's KwaZulu-Natal is quite the distance between the places and the communities are quite far. I remember when we were there in Nkomati, the one lady told us her child needs to walk 4 hours in the morning to get to school, because there's no buses or any transport. And I'm just like, that is a necessity. That is a priority. Safe transport for children, and a child of 6 years old do not have
Can't be
to
walking
walk
that
4
distance. Yeah,
that is just unacceptable. So things like that, I would really love to see that there's change in that. And I think as long as AfriForum got a strong focus on education in South Africa, we will keep on pressuring things like that. But for now, our main focus is on mother tongue education, not just Afrikaans education, but mother tongue education for everyone. And then obviously the whole situation regarding schools. And we know there may come a stage in our country where we might lose the schools that we are proud of now. And that's why we also have a focus on building our own schools. And that is also something that other communities must look into in mobilizing themselves to get together and take action in their own hands.
And I guess that would be a good time for us to talk about the Bella Act, because you guys were you guys were on the forefront of the fight against, the Bella Act, and specifically the language legislation that they intend on introducing, as well as, I believe, the admission uh,
Yes.
policy that they, or rather legislation that they want to introduce. Can you just tell us a little bit or briefly on that?
Yeah, so there was a whole situation regarding the Bala Bill, and um, there was also a lot of meetings, and there was an agreement set at the end of last year on the 13th of December between a lot of participating parties. And and that's not political parties, it's people that is strong leaders in the educational circles, as well as the Minister of Education. And then the president just went on and signed the bill with the two bylaws regarding placement of language, um, after there were actually other agreement there was a other agreement made, and it
Yeah.
felt like that was just not taken in consideration. So at the moment, um, the whole solidarity movement, but Solidarity AfriForum and the Schooling Support Centre feel strongly that this is an attack on Afrikaans schools, and that is why we so strongly act on this Bella Bill, and that's why we also said that we are going to take legal action. So earlier this week, no, not this week, last week, we had a media conference where we said that we wrote a letter to the president and to the Minister of Education, um, where we put them on terms for 10 days. So they've got 10 days to resolve the dispute regarding the signing of the bill. And if this 10 days are running out and we don't hear anything back, then we will go forward with the legal actions. The thing is, the Bella Bill is not just about language and admission. It's also admissions. It's also about the government trying to centralize all authority of schools to them. And it's also about taking parents out of the picture and not including them in their school, in the children's schools environment. It means that there will be school governing bodies run by parents, but they don't have any say in anything. And at the moment, this is one of the most powerful things in schools, and what keeps some of our best schools running is our school governing bodies and the insight of our parents and the knowledge. Because, on some of this school governing bodies, there's lawyers, there's advocates, there's engineers, there's really specialized people, and it's wonderful to have that influence in a school. If that's all being taken out and everything is just being controlled by the government, I can't see how. Well, the government hasn't set a great example for us in the past years about keeping up standards and setting stuff straight. So there's a great disbelief. If they want to centralize schools, what is going to happen to schools? Is it all just going down in the dumps? So for us, it's also about protecting the few good schools that's still left, trying to get the schools that's not there yet uplifted or to the same standard, education in mother tongue, and then also says admit children to your school that speak the language of that school. It doesn't work if you have an Afrikaans school, but you let a person in that's only English speaking and he doesn't understand the language of the education. It's not helping the school and it's not helping the child. And it goes both ways. In any language, it works like that. And the other thing is also there needs to be a cutoff at schools. They must say that, listen, we can only take in 1,000 learners, because when we take in 1,000 learners, it means then we have enough classrooms, we have enough bathrooms, we have enough sport fields, we have enough everything. But if we take in 2,000 children in a school that can only provide for 1,000, then problems get in. And then there is, so admissions is also very important to be done right. So, yeah, I think I really hope that we can resolve the dispute. It obviously will be great if we can just get to common ground and say, listen, let's just all work together rather than get into a legal fight. But, you know, if like I said, the 10 days runs out, we won't have any other choice than to take action.
It does seem that they are focusing more on the legislative part of it rather than building new schools and trying to find adequate teachers for those schools and for those communities. And for example, building roads, improving their infrastructure. It does seem that they are leaning towards the legislative part and putting more effort into the legislative part, because one of the things that Gauteng Premier even said was that he wants to take over the private school. He believes the government should take over the private schools and incorporate them with the public schools. And the question is, but how have you been running the public schools that you can now adequately add in more? Basically, you're adding more responsibilities when you haven't shown that you can handle what you have at the moment. And so it is of great concern.
Yeah, that is very true. And the other thing as well is that, you know, this bill has now been signed, but there's no norms and standards in place. So how do we need to implement this bill if there's no norms and standards that shows the way? Or so that's half something that needed to be in place before signing the bill that's not in place, but now the bill is signed. And that goes back to my previous point about the Department of Education, where I said that they have a lot of plans, but acting on the plans and turning those plans into visible things, that's not happening. So yes, we've got this bill, and you know, AfriForum and Solidarity and the School Supporting System of Centre are working closely now with the department to get these norms and standards approved and, you know, to set it up. But still, what does it mean? What does it mean? And the thing is, we can't just leave it and say, yo, it's not in place and nothing will happen, because then it creates a loophole. So we need to know exactly what this means and what is it meaning for Afrikaans schools and what is it meaning for all the schools in South Africa, and how are we going to take this forward?
Yeah, no, I hear you and I understand you. It's been very interesting talking to you tonight. I see we are way past the time that I had asked.
Thank you, I enjoyed it a lot.
As I had anticipated that we might actually go above and beyond. It seems we are going close to an hour now, and I had only requested like 45 minutes of your time, and I do apologize for that. But this was an amazing talk, and it was certainly insightful for me. I hope that, you know, I will have you in more and more other streams after this. Before I close it off, can you tell the people what you are doing and where they can find you and how they can support, you know, the things or your initiatives basically of what you are doing?
You're certainly, and thanks again for the opportunity. You know, we are not always getting opportunity to talk about all these things, and I think the 5 points that you took on tonight and asked me about is really important, and I think it was also very insightful to talk about it. So thanks for that. Yeah, so people are welcome to contact us at onderwys, like education, but in the Afrikaans version, onderwys at afriforum.co.za. They can also send me an email direct if they have any questions or concerns about any educational queries at carien.bloem. It's my name and my surname. All small letters at afriforum.co.za. Yes, and you are welcome to go and visit AfriForum's website. It's just afriforum.co.za, and there you can see all the wonderful initiatives that AfriForum is working on besides education. So please go and have a look, and yes, please send me an email if you got anything you'd like to ask.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Thank you, Carien Bloem, for joining us today. And to you, my audience, I hope this was insightful and that you enjoyed yourself today with this podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share also this episode with your friends and family. And I will see you on the next episode. God bless.